like the Election Commission.
Those connections are key for the UPSC. Got to understand how everything works together.
Exactly. And another common question might be about the differences between high courts and the Supreme Court.
We touched on some of those.
We did, but there's more to explore,
Like what kinds of cases go where?
Right, and what happens when there's a conflict between a high court judgment and a Supreme Court judgment.
Got to know that for the exam.
Absolutely. Now, for our listeners who are here to just broaden their understanding.
Yeah, those who are just curious about how it all works.
I think they might be wondering about the real-world impact,
Right. How does this system actually touch their lives?
Exactly. What are some real-world examples, those landmark cases that have shaped our society?
That's a great point. Maybe we can talk about some of those judgments, those that deal with fundamental rights, environment, social issues like gender equality or LGBTQ plus rights.
I think that would be fascinating. It brings the whole system to life.
It makes it real relatable.
And even for UPSC aspirants, seeing that real-world impact is crucial.
It's not just theory. It's about analyzing how the system works in practice.
Exactly.
And another question that might be on a lot of minds is about the future of the high courts.
Ah, yes, the crystal ball question.
What are the challenges, the opportunities? How do we make sure this system stays relevant in a rapidly changing world?
Big questions. And it needs input from everyone, from judges to lawyers to policymakers to everyday citizens.
We've talked about some challenges, the backlog, embracing technology, making the system more accessible.
But there's more, so much more to think about.
Like what? What else should we be considering?
Well, the cases are getting more complex, especially in areas like tech, finance, intellectual property.
Right, it's a globalized world now.
It is. Judges need to be ready for those complex cross-border cases.
It's not just about knowing Indian law anymore. It's about how it fits into the global picture.
Exactly. And then there's public trust in the judiciary.
Right. That's essential for any legal system to work.
There have been concerns about transparency, accountability, even bias.
Gotta be fair. A&D seen as fair.
Exactly. And we need diverse voices in the judiciary.
Diversity on the bench, that's crucial.
Historically, it's been dominated by certain groups.
Not very representative of India as a whole.
We need judges from different backgrounds, different genders, castes, religions, socioeconomic groups.
Different perspectives, different lived experiences, shaping legal decisions.
Absolutely. It's about making sure justice truly is blind to social divisions.
And it's not just judges, it's lawyers, legal scholars, everyone involved.
We need a more inclusive legal system that works for everyone.
It's a big task, but a worthy one.
It is. It's about ensuring those high courts remain strong, a cornerstone of Indian democracy.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the Indian high court system.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. We've covered a lot of ground.
From history to the challenges of today.
For our UPSC folks, remember, this is just the beginning. Keep digging deeper, analyze those judgments, stay updated on the debates.
And don't be afraid to think critically.
And for everyone else, we hope this gave you a better understanding of this complex but vital system.
It touches all our lives.
Remember, an informed citizenry is the foundation of a strong democracy. So stay curious, keep asking those tough questions, and engage with the system.
Your voice matters.
Well said. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep striving for a more just world.
And keep listening to The Deep Dive for more deep dives into the issues that matter most.
We'll see you next time.
Well, for one thing, financial security.
Oh, financial security.
Yeah, so their salaries and allowances.
Okay.
They're fixed by Parliament.
Parliament sets those.
Yeah, and they can't be reduced while the judge is in office.
So no one can pressure them by threatening their pay.
Exactly. No financial arm twisting allowed.
Makes sense. What else helps them stay financially independent?
Well, their expenses are covered, too.
Their expenses?
Yeah, staff salaries, the costs of running their office, all that.
Okay, so those are taken care of?
Yep, all charged to the consolidated fund of the state.
So they don't have to go hat in hand to the government every year?
Exactly.
Yes.
It's a separate pot of money.
Keeps things clean.
Keeps those lines nice and clear.
Now what about, discussions about judges in Parliament? Are there rules about that?
Oh, yeah, big time. You can't just talk about judges however you want in Parliament or the state legislatures.
So politicians can't just go around criticizing them?
Nope. It's about protecting judges from that kind of pressure.
Shields them a bit.
Creates a buffer, lets them do their job without fear of political backlash.
So they can focus on the law.
Exactly. Law, not politics.
Now what happens after their tenure? Can they just go back to practicing law like normal?
Actually, no, they can't.
They can't.
High court judges, once they retire, they're not allowed to practice in any court except the Supreme Court and other high courts.
So they can't go back to the lower courts where they used to be the judge.
Right. It's about preventing conflicts of interest.
So no one can accuse them of favoritism or anything like that?
Exactly. It keeps everything squeaky clean, maintains that public trust.
It's all about perception too, right?
Absolutely. You got to avoid even the appearance of impropriety.
Makes sense. So it sounds like these safeguards are pretty comprehensive.
They are, and for good reason, you know?
Yeah, judicial independence is fundamental to a fair system.
Couldn't agree more. It's absolutely essential.
And to really drive that point home,
Yeah.
the Constitution, it even tells states to separate the judiciary from the executive branch completely.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
So, like, no executive authority can have any judicial power.
Keeps those powers nice and separate.
So it's not just about individual judges, it's about the whole branch being independent.
The whole system, yeah.
Wow. Okay, we've covered a lot here.
We have. It's like a crash course in Indian civics, you know?
It really is. And this stuff is relevant for everyone, not just those studying for the UPSC exam.
Absolutely. This is about understanding your rights, how the system works.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, as they say.
It really is. The more you understand about the system, the more empowered you are.
Whether you're a lawyer preparing for the UPSC or just an everyday citizen.
You're better equipped to navigate the legal landscape.
Right, and to participate in our democracy in a meaningful way.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Now, for those UPSC aspirants out there,
Yeah, I was aiming for top marks.
remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Barely scratched the surface.
The exam could go deep on specific judgments, debates about reforms, comparisons with other judicial systems.
You've got to go deep. Case studies, legal philosophy, the whole 9 yards.
It's not just memorizing facts. It's about showing a nuanced understanding, being able to think critically about the law.
Exactly. They want to see that you can analyze, evaluate, make connections.
Show that you're not just regurgitating information, you're engaging with it.
Right. And for our listeners who are here to just become more informed citizens,
Yeah, those who are just curious about the system.
understanding the high courts can help you navigate legal issues, hold those in power accountable.
That's empowering. Right?
It is. It gives you a voice, helps you understand your rights.
So as we think about everything we've learned about this system, a big question comes to mind.
Hit me with it.
With so many cases, the backlog in the courts, all the challenges India is facing, how can we make the high court system stronger for the 21st century?
The big question.
It is a big question and one that everyone is grappling with, from lawmakers to legal experts to everyday citizens.
There's no easy fix, that's for sure.
No, definitely not.
But one thing's for sure, we got to tackle that backlog of cases.
Justice delayed is justice denied, they say.
And it's true. It undermines the whole system.
Creates so much uncertainty and suffering.
Exactly. It erodes public faith in the system.
So how do we even begin to address this huge backlog?
Well, more judges, for one.
More judges.
More hands on deck, but it can't just be about quantity, you know?
Right. We need quality, too.
We need judges who are well-trained, who are efficient, who are committed to those high standards of justice.
So not just filling seats, but filling them with the right people.
Exactly. People who have the skills, the experience, the temperament to be a judge.
What else can we do to make the system work better?
Embrace technology.
Technology.
Yeah, think about it. AI helping with case management, legal research, even drafting judgments.
Wow, so free up those judges for the more complex decision-making.
Exactly. Technology could make courts more efficient, more transparent, more accessible to everyone.
That's a really interesting idea. What about the language of the law? It can be so confusing.
Oh, tell me about it. Simplifying legal language would be a huge step forward.
Make it easier for people to understand their rights, navigate the system.
Empower people. And then, of course, there's the issue of judicial training.
Training.
Yeah, the world is changing so fast.
New challenges all the time.
Exactly. Cybercrime, intellectual property, environmental law. Judges need to be up to date on all of it.
Got to keep up with the times.
They do. They need ongoing training to handle those complex cases.
So it's not just about what they learned in law school. It's about continuous learning.
Lifelong learning. And the good news is the Indian judiciary, they've got a good track record of adapting.
Oh, yeah. They've been able to change with the times.
Yeah, they've shown resilience, a willingness to evolve.
From the post-independence era to globalization to the digital age, they've managed to keep up.
Pretty impressive, right?
It is. So with all these challenges and potential solutions, what's the main takeaway for our listeners?
The Indian high court system, despite its flaws, it's vital to Indian democracy.
It's worth understanding, engaging with, trying to improve.
Absolutely. It's our system.
Whether you're prepping for the UPSC or just want to be a more informed citizen, understanding how the high courts work is so important.
It's about recognizing that justice is a process, and we all have a role to play.
Well said. Now, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
let's turn our attention to some questions our listeners might have.
Let's hear them. Well, I think for the UPSC folks, they're probably curious about how the high court system fits into the bigger picture of Indian polity.
Right, how it all connects.
Yeah, like how does it interact with Parliament, the executive branch, all those independent bodies like the Election Commission?
It's not just this isolated thing, right?
Yeah, it's all intertwined.
And understanding those connections, that's got to be key for the UPSC exam.
Oh, absolutely. They'll throw you those curveball questions. You got to be ready.
Got to be able to connect the dots.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then another question that might pop up is about the differences between high courts and the Supreme Court.
We talked about some of them, but there's always more to unpack.
Right, like what kinds of cases typically end up at the Supreme Court versus the high courts?
And what happens when there's a conflict between their judgments?
The clash of the titans. That's definitely something a UPSC aspirant should be able to explain.
Got to know how to navigate those legal waters.
For sure. Now, for our listeners who are tuning in just to learn more about how India works,
Yeah, those who are just curious about the system.
they might be wondering about the real-world impact of all this, you know?
Right, how does this stuff actually play out in people's lives?
Exactly. What are some concrete examples, those landmark cases that have made a difference?
That's a great point. Maybe we could spend a few minutes talking about some of those judgments.
Yeah, those that deal with fundamental rights, the environment, social issues like gender equality or LGBTQ plus rights.
Those cases that have really shaped our society.
It helps to see the system in action, you know?
Brings it all to life.
And even for UPSC aspirants, understanding the real-world impact is crucial.
It's not just about the theory, it's about how it all plays out.
Exactly. It's about being able to analyze those decisions, see how they've shaped the legal landscape.
So it's like connecting those dots between legal principles and real-world change.
Exactly. And I think another question that might be on a lot of minds, both for UPSC folks and everyday citizens, is about the future of the high courts.
Yeah, where do we go from here?
What are the big challenges, the opportunities? How do we make sure this system, which has its roots in the colonial era, stays relevant and effective in the 21st century?
It's a big one.
It is, and it's something that requires everyone to think critically, you know?
Judges, lawyers, policymakers, citizens, we all have a role to play.
We've touched on some of the challenges, the backlog, technology, making the system more accessible.
But what else is out there? What else should we be thinking about?
Well, the cases are getting more complex, especially in areas like technology, finance, intellectual property.
Oh yeah, the world is changing so fast.
It is, and judges need to be equipped to handle those new challenges.
So it's not just about knowing Indian law anymore. It's about understanding global trends and international law.
Exactly. It's a globalized world, and the law has to keep up.
And what about public trust in the judiciary? That's got to be a concern, right?
Oh, absolutely. There have been questions raised about transparency, accountability, even potential bias in some cases.
It's got to be fair, and it has to be seen as fair.
Exactly. And we need more diversity in the judiciary, too.
Diversity on the bench.
Yeah. Historically, it's been dominated by certain groups, which doesn't reflect India as a whole.
So we need more judges from different backgrounds, different genders, castes, religions, socioeconomic groups.
It's about bringing those diverse perspectives to the table, making sure everyone feels represented.
Making sure justice really is blind to those social divisions.
Exactly. And it's not just judges, it's about having more diverse lawyers, legal scholars, everyone involved in shaping the law.
It's about creating a more inclusive and equitable legal system.
One that truly serves the needs of all Indians.
That's a powerful vision. It's a lot to work towards.
It is, but I think it's essential if we want the high courts to remain a strong pillar of Indian democracy.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the Indian high court system.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. We've covered so much ground, from the history to the challenges of today to the possibilities for the future.
It's a complex system, but hopefully we've shed some light on how it works.
For those of you prepping for the UPSC, remember, this is just the beginning.
Keep exploring, keep learning.
Dive into those landmark judgments, analyze those legal debates, and don't be afraid to challenge the status quo.
Think critically. That's what they're looking for.
And for everyone else, we hope this deep dive has given you a better understanding of this vital system that impacts all of our lives.
It's about being informed, engaged citizens.
Remember, knowledge is power, and your voice matters.
So stay curious, keep asking those tough questions, and engage with the system.
Well said. Until next time, keep exploring.